right. So, fourth time's a charm. Sorry, we could not do our live cast. We ended up like eighth time, lots of times. We could not do our live cast because we had some technical difficulties. That's on me. We're gonna work that out and figure that out. So hopefully we do this again and that will be fixed. But welcome to the Galactic Saber 1 year anniversary. We created the we created the Galactic Saber over 1 year ago as an effort to kind of fill up our summertime block for the Redux Society. And apparently dance goes down in the summertime, so we needed something to pick up in the summertime, and that was the Galactic Saber League. So we've been in business for 1 year. We put it together in 2 weeks. Woo, yeah. And joining me today are some of the knights of the Galactic Saber, and we're only missing Xander. Xander couldn't be here today. But we have all the other knights, and they've been with us from the beginning. So we're going to talk with them and talk about all the fun things that they've learned over the course of the year and what they hope to see the coming years and all the fun things. So starting with Ted, because Ted, you're the first one I see over to the upper left over there. What have you learned from Galactic Saber? Like, what are your thoughts a year in?
So I guess kind of you had given us a topic of things to think about, right? And so what we've learned, say, kind of breaks back into the first topic, which is what Galactic Saber was like in the beginning, right? And in the beginning, I would say we were learning, but it was kind of going slow and working on building like a common language that we could use to communicate about rules, about how to train in lightsaber fencing, and kind of like, building a foundation, I would say, right? Like you have to learn the fundamentals before you can do other things. So at the beginning, it was nice because we just kind of got to figure out, what was going to happen. Because, the rules are established already, but, we have to interpret those rules, which was a whole thing because it was in French. And then, we took it slow and made friends. And then after we kind of had everything set up, we learned a lot more things to do with combat training, choreography, kind of fundamentals of like sword fighting, I would say. Not exactly HEMA-y. It's kind of, as you said, your own thing. You wanted it to be like its own style. So we learned a bunch of that and then started to learn some more advanced techniques, I would say, in the second half of the year. Advanced choreographies and katas. That's the thing about having a set vocabulary is if people from the outside, like I didn't know what a kata was before I was in it, but it's basically just like a set of moves you do together to practice control and technique and stuff. But anyways, we learned more advanced things of that and kind of helped.
Not a lot of people knew this, but in the beginning there, we didn't even have a rule book to go off of. So for the first 2 months there, we were kind of just trying to interpret the best that we could from what was released at the time and trying to make the go of it. How have you had to, what do you think about that process? And let's go ahead and go with Kale. Kale, like what was the process of adapting to a rule book without having an actual rule book?
Oh man, that was a really big uphill climb because Galactic Saber uses an arming or a prioritization rule, which we had to interpret what the FFE wanted that to look like. And so I remember in one of the very first iterations of our rules, it was kind of a like laissez-faire, which I think is a French word.
Right.
But it was kind of like a laissez-faire thing where you just kind of, just bring it back a little bit. And then we slowly got better at that. But now it's like, hey, we have a defined principle of what an arming technique looks like, what priority looks like. We have rules that kind of extend a little bit beyond the FFE rules because we needed to find safety precautions to deal with. And honestly, like, I think that over the year, it almost doesn't seem like it's been a year in the making. Like looking back, it's like, wow, that was dramatically different, but it doesn't feel like it took us a year to find that foothold. And like now, whenever we have our Friday night fights, it's like, all right, I'm ready. I know the rules. I know what I need to do. I know what my opponent or what I need my opponent to not do.
I definitely feel like combat has definitely gone way up as far as like what our knowledge is compared to when we started. And yeah, the rules we definitely split a little bit from the ASL in some of our rule sets. And I think that a large part of that is the fact that we didn't have a rule book in the beginning. So we kind of had to just kind of go with it. And I think in some ways we've had the opportunity to test out and play around with the rules enough. So I think that we're seeing kind of the what's going on there is, you know, we have that. Well, we've already been playing with this rule set, like this is working, and you know why would we change it? Now let's go to Scott. Scott, you started Galactic Saber for a very different reason. Why did you get into Galactic Saber?
I don't know if it was a different reason. I mean, I just wanted to get into like the physical aspect of you know, that's one of the reasons I love dance, is just to get, you know, physically in my body and have a form of exercise. But I've always loved combat in you know, whatever form it might be, and I really just wanted to get into swordplay more than anything. Is that what you're talking about, or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but like I know you want to do like more of the choreography and stuff like that too. So that was always kind of your aspiration. You were stage combat.
Yeah, in high school, I did a lot of theater, and I did a lot of theater in college as well. And in high school, I was in a play where we learned sword fighting and how to do combat on stage, and we did more sword fighting in college as well. And so, yeah, choreography has always been a really fun thing for me because I love memorizing a set move pattern and just going precision quick. It's just fun. It's cool.
Absolutely.
And so, especially just like the quick sword play, the quick combat, and that's one of the reasons I really love doing just like the Friday night fights, where you can just really improv and have a lot of fun, do some spins, and you know, really get into something that might turn into something that looks like choreography or whatever. But yeah, I do like how combat looks.
I feel like that's something that hasn't changed from the beginning, is that like from the beginning, Scott has always had amazing saber
Spins.
flow.
Yes, the flows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean,
all right.
I love turning it into a dance. So it's the dance studio is doing saber combo. I feel like it's the perfect combo.
I agree with you. Now, Lucy, you've been with us from the very beginning. You were in those first kind of weeks when we were trying to throw it all together. What has been your experience so far?
Well, it definitely started off a lot less, I guess, formal than it is now. I mean, our first May the 4th event, I remember getting the lightsabers ahead of time and like frantically Googling French words and trying to figure out what the heck the rules meant. Trying to figure out like videos that were actual fencing or if they were actual lightsaber fighting and how I could possibly explain this to other people. And then, you know, like I think a month later we had a very concrete set of students who were coming regularly and learning the steps and learning the rules. And we had, you know, we got through our rule book and we got through our interpretations and we got through them fast because people had like this massive thirst for knowledge about how the Galactic Saber rules had worked and how all of this went together. And we also like really wanted to know how it worked because it was so fun and it was so exciting that you wanted to keep doing it. So we kind of went at light speed through the rule set.
Not to be confused with Lightspeed Saber.
Right? Completely different organization. But we went very fast through, you know, the rule set and figuring out, you know, our distinctive style and the way that we fought and the way that we taught so that we could have the consistency in the fights that we have now. And that was really interesting to watch from the beginning where like I didn't think this was going to be a thing. I thought it was going to be like a couple people fighting with foam swords, but they lit up this time. And it turned into this massive intense league, which is really cool. It's very fun and not at all what I expected it to be.
They're not foam and they hurt.
They do hurt. getting it, that's a good segue. So one thing that we've all experienced, especially when we were first starting off in our first sparring matches, we went a little hard. We hit a little hard with those heavy grade sabers, and they hurt. I think Xander was prone to calling it was yellow belt rage, as it were. So yeah, we've all kind of been there. I think every time we fight someone new, we feel that again. Like, okay, yeah, this is going to hurt. So Ted, going back up to you, what have you learned since then? Like, what is the knowledge that you wish you had known back then that you know now?
Well, you have a valuable insights that you told me to talk about, and the one main thing I've put there is that if you're like, okay, no one wants to buy a lightsaber, which is it's not super expensive, but it's certainly not cheap. No one wants to buy a lightsaber and then also purchase like protective gear because it looks kind of dopey to be wearing like hockey pads while you're using a lightsaber, but no, and they also don't want to spend more money on gear, whatever. I will say the gear is the most important thing because it's the difference between breaking your fingers or just having bruises for months. The pain, so the gear, the most valuable thing I've learned is hand protection, head protection, like, a gorget of some kind, and like arm protection on your.
We all thought it was going for the helmet versus mask thing there, right? Was that just me? I don't know. Was that
what?
For a second there, I thought we were going to bring up the helmet versus. That's a whole nother conversation. But, there goes my dog again. All right, Kale. How about yourself? What was the number one thing you've learned so far?
Oh man.
Scott.
So,
Who?
I would definitely say that, and this is something that I think we go over on almost everybody's second class now, but zones. And like, admittedly, it's an ongoing knowledge that I'm learning with it. But honestly, like playing to my best distance from somebody, that's what zones are, is the distance that you can find from somebody. But playing to my best distance versus getting close enough inside of theirs, like that's like whenever it comes to like sometimes people refer to fighting, especially like weapon martial fighting, as like a dance of death, but it honestly feels like a very specific and coordinated dance whenever it comes to finding somebody's zone value, because somebody such as Scott can have a like a very wide open zone 3 or zone 4, and that might be my zone 5, which I won't be able to reach him. And Ted can speak to this, that I've struggled a lot with getting close enough to people with long reach.
Let me tell you, if they were giving you points based on if you could hit like 6 inches to like 1.5 feet in front of your target, Kale would just eviscerate that league.
Absolutely. The only note I ever give Kale is just take one more step and you'll hit everything.
But then
I think, yeah, in the beginning, Kale liked to pull his hits a lot too. He would always pull a lot of that combat hit. All right, moving on down to Scott. Yes. Scott, what's the number one thing that you've learned so far?
Personally, I think the main thing that I've learned is keeping my brain in adrenaline. Mm-hmm. You can learn all the technique in the world, but then once you get in the ring, it's pure go. And I still remember the first Friday night fight that I ever did. The first time I got in the ring, I'll always remember it because I don't think I've ever felt adrenaline that much. I've never been in an actual combat, you know what I mean? Like, I've done a lot of really fun adrenaline things, but I don't know, when you're trying to whack somebody with a big stick and prevent them from whacking you, first time that hits, you're like, okay, I don't want that to happen again.
Or someone takes out your knee, Just...
Yeah. And the first time I fought Yui, and actually, I remember like being overwhelmed by adrenaline, which is probably why I was hitting too hard.
Yeah.
In that fight, it's just because I was doing what was comfortable with me, talking about what Kale was talking about with the zones. I really like jumping in and jumping out and jumping in and jumping out. Right. Whereas I didn't focus on defense at all when I fought you. And so that was my first fight. And now I feel like the main thing I've learned is being able to think under the pressure, and that I can get into somebody's zone and still have control with defense and technique and all the things that we practice in class. It's a huge difference.
Absolutely. All right. How about yourself, Lucy? What'd you learn? What have you learned so far?
So I think mine is actually the exact opposite of Scott's. In my first couple of matches, because I'd been spending a lot more time reading the rules, trying to figure out how this league was going to work. So I was thinking a lot. Like, I was spending every match I went into, I would be like, okay, so they have to do a full load, and I have to make sure that their load is full, and then I have to do a load, and then I have to block them exactly this way, and my feet have to be exactly here. And it was like, by that time, I'd been smacked in the face maybe 3 times. So it didn't really work. And it was only once I had the muscle memory and I'd been training for long enough that I started, just being able to turn the brain off and just go into a fight and actually be able to do things that I already knew were legal. And also, the flip side of that, realizing that there were judges there for a reason to make sure what my opponent was doing was legal. Because a lot of what I was doing was I'd be like half coaching, half fighting whoever I was posed to. So, they would do like a half-assed load and I'd be like, oh, that's not a real load, so I'm just not going to worry about it. And then it would get called on me. So stopping to think and just letting myself go and know that I know what I'm doing and trusting the people who are in charge of keeping track of everything else to actually keep track of everything else has been probably the biggest hurdle I've dealt with.
I like the punctuation.
Yeah, the puppy agrees.
You ended it perfectly. I think having playing to the judges' rule set is definitely something that we all had to learn and struggle with. Judges always don't.
Ian, you
right.
are so quiet. You are the quietest
Still
person
quiet?
in the world.
Still quiet? Can you hear me? I hear my dog, but
Put the microphone in your mouth.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, I think judging has been something that we've all struggled with, and we've all had to learn to kind of cope with, because every judge has a different eye and all that kind of stuff. So, Ted, going back up to you, what has been your favorite thing about the league so far?
What? Oh,
If you had to boil it down to one.
That wasn't even on the list of things to think about.
I wasn't ready for this.
That's like having to choose your favorite kid, which everyone knows. Never mind. Nothing. Favorite thing about the league? Let's see. Well, I feel like you can't overlook the appeal of holding a lightsaber. Like, you could hold a lightsaber and not be in Galactic Saber, but I mean, I have friends and they'll like text me. They'll be like, "Ted, should I buy a lightsaber?" And I go, "Hell yes." And then they go, "But I would just have it and never use it." And so like they kind of want one, but then they feel like it would be a waste. Whereas I have one and I hold it at least every week, but sometimes more if I practice, which is rare. But it gives me a reason to have my lightsabers and to use them, and so holding the lightsabers and putting such a device.
He's back. He's back. I think we lost you for a minute there, Ted. So you're back now, maybe.
Yeah, he's frozen again.
Wave. All right.
Perfect timing to freeze.
Moving on to Kale. Kale, we had a bit of an upset when you decided to switch sides. You went from being a Jindo to a Yodian. Explain that thought process there. What happened?
Traitor.
Oh man. So we have 3 defined philosophies that we kind of orient with the Kriaks, the Jindo, and the Yodians. And it kind of comes down, for me personally, it comes down to that last part where it's like, do I train to better myself? Do I train because why not? Or do I train to help others? And it was, I think, either the second or the third Friday night fight that I had this up. Oh, we lost Ted.
I just removed him.
But I had this very obvious moment where I went to strike somebody, and instead of making a full strike against them, it just stopped early. And Ian pulled me aside. He's like, dude, you're holding back. It's very obvious you're holding back. And I was like, And so I did some reflection on myself, and I'm just too nice of a person. So I switched to Yodians.
That's a good reason. You're like, I don't want to hurt somebody, so I guess I'll just switch sides.
I don't think anybody like really wants to hurt anybody in the league or anything. Like I've never felt any malicious strikes come against me. But honestly, like it's a hurdle that I've got to get over. And I don't mean to refer to the Yodians as a hurdle.
You're not the only one. I think even on the Kriak side, we have we have people who are just carers and givers, and they want to take care of people, and trying to wrap your head around that, and hitting someone with a hard stick is something to wrap your head around. So yeah, you're not alone in that. So
I wanted to give a shout out, but I forgot her Jedi name. But you know who we're talking about, and we miss you.
Yes. We do. I miss everyone. I can't wait to get back to doing what we do best. And now I guess Facebook has brackets now, Scott. Like they have brackets where you can set up brackets for the tournaments and things. So yeah, we're gonna have to get that all set up and try to figure out how to add you in there.
Pitch it all you want. It's just not gonna happen.
All right. Let me try to add Ted back in here. Scott, what do you got? What has been your favorite thing so far about Galactic Saber?
Well, I do definitely love combat, and I definitely love like the art of swordplay. But I think the main thing that's been really keeping me coming back is the community. I really like nerds, and I for months and months I was trying to get the lightsaber socials to happen after, and everybody was always so busy. But it started happening every now and then, and those. As much as I love classes and as much as I love doing the combat, I think my favorite things are going out and having a couple drinks and everybody chatting before and after. It's good vibes. It's good people. And that's what's keeping me coming back around as much as I love the combat.
I think that's something that we probably need to improve on, but we'll get into that later on the next section. Lucy, how about yourself? What has been your favorite thing so far about Galactic Saber?
You mean aside from being an absolute badass? Yes, I know. Yeah, I think.
Same.
I'm trying to talk here. I think one of the biggest things for me was like it's a sense of like accomplishment and a sense of power that you don't really get in your normal day-to-day life. Just gotta time it. Gotta time between the house. So one of the biggest things for me is that like I can't. I'm trying to talk. No. So honestly, no. It is being able to fight and being able to kick ass and being able to walk off that field and stand in front of people. Because if I go and pick a fight in the middle of the street, obviously I'll still feel like a badass, but I'll also get arrested and I won't be friends with that person anymore. If I kick Kale's ass, he'll still talk to me. And I think honestly it's that sense of camaraderie and all those people, but also just the feeling of power and the feeling of, being honestly able to kick some ass and have some fun with it. It's a good time, and it's why I do it.
You forgot kick Kale's ass and knock him out of second place for the 2019 bracket.
I don't know what you're referring to. I would never do that and gloat about it on a live video.
Spill that tea.
All right, so Kale, you've been experimenting and playing around with other lightsaber leagues and learning a whole bunch of things. What has been something that you've been able to pull away from other lightsaber leagues?
Oh man, honestly, so a lot of those other lightsaber leagues, they don't use the prioritization thing, which means that your improv skills, as Scott was referring to earlier, have to be like on their game for the defense. And there are some very creative blocking techniques that I have pulled away from other lightsaber leagues. And that's just kind of like a spur of the moment thing. But honestly, all of those blocking techniques can absolutely be used in Galactic Saber, and it makes it it makes it so much more fun too, like having additional blocks to use because, and I don't know if this has been mentioned, but Galactic Saber and the FFE rule set is way better to look at. And no offense to the other leagues. I mean, they're visceral, they're high intensity, they're fun. But whenever it comes to like watching a fight, and I think one of you three will be able to corroborate with this. But we went to a tournament where Lucy got first, but where they said it was.
I'm a badass. We've been over this. Fine. I've accepted it.
But they said, "Wow, those Galactic Saber guys, which included Lucy as well, but they're all really entertaining to watch." And we did pretty well in that tournament, all things considered. Like, we were entertaining to watch because our fighting style is both flashy and clearly effective.
At the very least, we are entertaining. All right. Mission accomplished.
Memorable. We're memorable. Yes. Coming back for more.
We control the room.
We do, and we have gotten that compliment a couple of times when we go out and sparring. That's something that we'll probably continue to do, is to support other leagues and support other rule sets. I don't know if I'll ever be good at the other ones, but I think it's definitely fun to go out and try to learn new things and new combat skills and put that to the knowledge. Lucy, you did win a tournament, didn't you? Tell us about your experience with in Iowa.
Oh, in Iowa. I thought you were talking about the other tournament I won. not to brag. No, Iowa was a very interesting experience because I went into it with the expectation that it would be, a good time to learn how it works and to see how other people fight. I wasn't really planning on winning by any stretch of the imagination. I wasn't even really planning on placing or anything. I was just, going to feel out the other fighters, see how the other leagues went. There's no better way to learn a new fighting style than to jump in the middle of a to the death tournament. It just works that way. But it went really well. I think that the lessons that we learned at Galactic Saber, especially in the women's division, worked really well because I fought in the women's division and I also fought in the co-ed division, and I took first in the women's, which is still very nice, but distinctive. The women's division was great because everyone was fighting controlled and everyone was fighting with the expectation that they would be respecting their opponent and that they, we're not out here to crush each other's bones. We're out here to have a decent match, which is a really interesting way to fight that wasn't necessarily my Galactic Saber experience. We're definitely, go for the throat in the flashiest way possible kind of league. Whereas, the women's division up in Iowa was, I'm going to beat you, but I'm going to beat you in a respectful and controlled manner, which was different but very fun. I worry a little bit that I might have gone for the throat a little bit more than they would have, but it worked fine. And then in the men's division or the co-ed division, it was a completely different experience because there were a lot more fighters, and I was a lot more tired for sure because it was the same day. And it was just a completely different style of fighting. There were more people, there were different sized people. I am not a large person, and there was no weight restriction or anything like that for the fighting. So there were a lot of times where, I was just fighting an opponent who was like 3 times my size, and there's only so many things I can do about that. So it was very interesting to see that juxtaposition. Also, I just felt like that rule set goes a little bit harder if you want it to. So if in times like that, it was very interesting. Hi, Ted.
So I just want to touch on something. I know this is like going to mess up the order or whatever, but I've got to say, like, that Lucy mentioned something that's been really awesome about Galactic Saber from the very beginning. We have never differentiated or treated like any gender as different from one another. It's been a very progressive, super awesome experience where it's like, oh, you're a dude? Cool. Oh, you're a chick? Cool. Oh, you're non-binary? Cool. Like, whatever. Come join, have fun. We're all in this together.
We're all holding light sticks at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter.
Now we're at Scott. Scott, you are currently the champion of Galactic Saber, holding on to that number 1 spot.
That's the first time I've heard that.
It is true. I mean, so how do you feel about defending that? What has your experience been like as a champion?
Well, this year's been really fun and really good. It's nice. I want to be in more fights just because every single time I'm in a fight, I learn. Every single person in this league has the skill to be in this league, and every single person has the ability to take it and dish it, and it's always fun to learn. I I I don't know. I feel like the only reason that I might be number one is because I haven't been as in as many fights. So I'm tentative to take the champion slot, but also haven't lost this year, so that's also nice. And so yeah, I guess when I want to defend it, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Right.
Where I'm at.
I'm definitely ready to take that because right now I'm currently in number 2, so I'm ready to take that spot from you.
You and I haven't fought in almost.
I know we haven't. It's been a
like
while.
8 months?
But Ted over here used to be the champion. What was it like before the last month? You were the top.
Well, before the pandemic.
I think so. Yeah, shortly. Well, there's the last
the last month
Yeah.
before the pandemic is when I got dethroned. What Ian did was he pulled me down, but he didn't ascend to that spot. He just
not enough. Not
he
enough.
just-
Not enough. So
yeah. I don't know. It was fun. I was I don't know. It was just
so
it was just 2020 that I was doing well.
Right, because I would say last year that was not the. Get some feedback. Here we go. Last year that was not the case. So tell me about your experience from last year to this year.
I don't know. So before we started keeping track of things, I was winning some games during those. I remember for sure. But then when we started keeping track, I didn't win any at all until 2020.
It was the Yodian thing. We're gonna say it was a Yodian thing.
Yeah, we're stronger in pairs.
Honestly, I just wanted to say the difference between Ted beginning and Ted now is a world of difference. Ted is a phenomenal fighter now. And he was okay in the beginning. He was okay. He wasn't bad.
Definitely more tentative back then.
Yeah, but
definitely more worried about hurting
trait,
people.
Yodian trait.
I remember just watching Ted and Ian's fight the last time that I saw you two fight. Like, I was shocked at your speed and precision and how cool you keep your head. Like, I was scared the next time I come up against you, Ted.
I'm pretty sure he beat me like 15-0. It was like recently. It was 15-1 or something. Yeah, well, I'll take that 1 point, I guess.
No, it was 0. It was 0 when.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a clean
sweep. 3 headshots. That's right. Yeah.
3 headshots. So that's something that sets our league apart from a lot of other leagues is our ability to defend. So what is your guys' thoughts on how Galactic Saber has to have a defense and how right now, and I think currently, I think defense is probably meta or like as a top, and it's a good strategy for a lot of people. I think it overpowers attacking in some regards. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Open question for her.
I do have just a quick thing on that, but I'm sure everyone has thoughts on that. Is that when we're outside of our rule set, and then people see us, and all these other rule sets, which are just instant slash as fast as you can, right? Everyone is always commenting that the people from our group are so defensively trained that they're impressed by it because, like, we're able to actually block and turn a sword fight into, like, I don't know, more than just instant draw blood.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean,
I think
everyone.
part is that our league is, like Ted said, is so good at defense, but also that just makes the show so much more fun when it's not about who touches first and that's it. When it's about hit, touch, that's so much more fun. It's cooler. It's more technique, and I feel like it makes us really stand out. Like just like everybody's been mentioning.
Because, like, what if the Duel of Fates in episode 1 or, like, the Anakin Obi-Wan duel in episode 3 was only, like, 5 seconds long?
Yeah, I think Ted missed our whole spiel about how much entertaining we were. We definitely went into that while you were taking your break. So. He's in his pajamas now, I think is what that
No,
means.
I'm not sure what I was gonna do there. I was just gonna shut the laptop lid, but then I realized that looked weird when I'm on the bed.
That's not at all what we saw, Ted, but we'll take that. We'll take that. All right. So what are moving towards the future? So what are some things that you guys are wanting to see going forward?
Do Kale and I not get to talk about what we think about defense?
Okay, yeah. Finish. Fair enough. Go for it. I will give you the time.
Want to go first, or...
Did you say that we use defense most?
Yeah.
No, that's definitely like not me.
Okay. Well, then
I'm a Form 4 person.
I would say Kale's a Form 4 firmly, and that's all offense for sure. But so Lucy, you have lots of experience. You are a Form 5 user, and probably one of the better ones in Galactic Saber, at the top one of the list anyway, of Form 5. Actually, none of you guys use Form 5, do you? I don't think.
Take your foot out of the mouth, Ian.
Right. Oh, anyway, yeah.
That's what I used. That's what I used on you that one match.
That is true. You did use it on me.
The best defense against Ian is Form 5.
Form 5 is really becoming the meta.
It is.
So especially outside the league.
Yes.
Yeah, no. But that actually wasn't what I was going to talk about. I can talk about that a bit if you want. I was going to say that defense in our league really helps with beginners because it gives them the opportunity to get into matches and actually exchange a few blows before either, someone goes way too hard and kicks them out, or, they can get a couple touches in there too, because it's not just about speed and it's not just about like, I know all of the openings because I've done this 200 times. It's being able to exchange the blows and have everything fully loaded, which is a lot easier for a newcomer to come in and say, okay, I have to do this, and then I get to hit them, or they will block me, and that's all it takes. And so it's a lot easier for someone to come in and start fighting at least at a Form 1 level than in some of the other leagues where you have to know, or like you can go in and you can fight, but you will get your ass kicked. So it is a little bit easier for beginners to come into our league with the defense and have something on their side to use against a more experienced fighter. Do you want me to go into Form 5 and how awesome it is? Okay. So Form 5 is essentially a form that we have 7 lightsaber forms. I'm sure everyone watching this is familiar. But Form 5 for our league is essentially a block and a riposte. At the heart of it, it's you block and then you riposte as fast as you can. It's technically I don't remember what it is. It's either the diplomat or the jack of all trades. I kind of flip-flop between the two. But in my mind, all it is a block and a repost. And the best thing for me as a small person and Kale as a shorter person, no offense, it's just true.
Thanks for not calling me small, I guess.
I don't really know where I was going with that one. But for people like me who are of smaller stature, fighting against people like Ian and Scott who are 10 feet tall.
The term reach, Lucy. The shorter reach. Someone with a short.
You said that people with a shorter reach is what you want me to call myself? My arms are as long as everyone else's. I'm small. I can't help it. I deny your truth. But what we do is you have to get into the other person's closer zones, essentially, in order to be able to land a hit on them, because your reach is shorter and you have to get closer in order to land a hit. So Form 5 works really well because you can go in and you can block, which brings you in close enough to your opponent that on your riposte, you're close enough to hit them, assuming you're not fighting Scott, who jumps out of the way like something that jumps a lot.
Spiders.
Popcorn, spiders, things that jump away from me. Bacon when it's too hot. That's what Scott is. It's just popping all over the place. But that's what Form 5 does, is it lets you get in close with a block, and then when you riposte, you're inside their guard, and there's very little that they can do to defend against it. And that is what I have used to beat most of the people that I have fought against. That and extreme trickery.
Poorly gig.
Since we're on the topic of forms and all that kind of fun stuff, Scott, explain a little bit about your tactics and how that fits in with one of the forms and all that.
Well, I mean, like I was going back, talking about my very first match, I think my instinct is to control the space as much as possible. And that kind of boils down mostly to Form 2. Controlling the space can also be a major factor when it comes to defense, like Form 5. If you are controlling the space around you and not moving it too much, that means somebody has to come to you and you control when they're close. But for me, I really like to move in and out of the combat. I really like to really take up as much room as possible. And so I kind of am always on my toes, always moving, getting in and striking and getting out as fast as possible. And that's usually how I take as much advantage as I can.
Right, and Kale, you have pretty much the exact opposite of Lucy. So tell us a little bit about your tactics and strategy and form.
I generally like to use what is referred to in our league Form 4, which is the nimble or agile form. And that involves a lot of fast footwork, moving laterally. I like to circle, try to work my way over to somebody's weak spot. So, if they're swinging right-handed, move over to their right. If they're left-handed, pray. But yeah, it's a lot of fast foot movement and trying to draw out an attack while moving out of the way before they knew that they were going to launch it.
Right.
Because I'm a force user.
He has the quickness. He's Yoda. He bounces around. It's epic. So that is something that I will say about our league is that I don't think anyone, even of the Knights, like nobody really has an upper hand. Like any one of us can lose at any moment in time. It is not like set in stone. You fight someone and unless it's maybe someone newer or something like that, then the beast boof our stats or whatever. But for the most part, anyone who's a knight and it's going to be, we're going to be like, oh, that's for a world to hurt. It could be a coin toss. Like I barely win against Kale or I lost against Kale plenty of times. So
can I just say
yeah,
while I've been in fights and also spectating fights, you can visibly see both opponents learning each other through each match. And if you're in the fight, it's terrifying. If you're spectating the fight, it's like you want music and fanfare. It is best thing ever.
So yeah, Galactic Saber does use a pretty unique system when it comes to the different forms. Has that been effective in identifying other people and how they fight and kind of their tactics?
Are you saying outside of the league or within the league?
Within the league, outside the league, and matches, whichever.
I think for me, it's really fun to talk about a certain person's style and how it adapts to the forms. So we were talking about Kale is very Form 4, Lucy's very Form 5. If we wanted to bring up Xander, for example, he's very Form 1. And you'd think that Form 1 being the most basic form of just angles and pure technique would be the easiest to defeat. But you get in the ring with Xander and he will clock you so fast. He's got speed, he's got technique, and he doesn't have to move around too much. He just gets you. And so you have to adapt in that moment. And it's really nice to have just the verbiage to describe that. And you look at somebody and you're just like, I see it. I literally see it.
I think facing Xander is one of the most anime experiences anyone ever experiences. Because I'm assuming that's not just me, that like while you're fighting Xander, you think, I have to push past my limits. Like something's not going right. I need to go further than I've gone before.
And Xander has out of the technique because he's been doing it far longer than any of us, I think. And so his technique is it's hard to overcome. And I think he's definitely has a Form 1, but he's a counter attacker now as well. He's joining Lucy in that Form 5. He's adapted to the meta. He's he'll smack you pretty hard.
He's leveling up.
Ted, explain a little bit about your combat style.
So I'm assuming I think I know what I am, and I don't know if you agree. If you do, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to say Form 6-ish, right? 6. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so 6, jack of all trades, kind of, a little bit. Kale is saying Form 3, maybe? Yeah, so lately I've been a lot of Form 3.
It's 3, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 is like Form 5, but without counterattacking. So basically, the most defensive, the least offensive, befitting someone who is Yodian, not trying to.
If you want to be
cause...
like Obi-Wan, right? You gotta
exactly. Obi-Wan, me. By the next time you guys see me in person, you can't see, but I've got a mullet. I'm going to be Obi-Wan, hopefully, in body and in spirit, as opposed to just in spirit. But so before that, I was kind of Form 6. Everything, because I, as someone with no martial arts background at all, and almost no athletic background at all before meeting up with you guys. So you taught the fundamentals of Form 1, like basic attacks and blocks, controlling space and dueling sort of tactics in Form 2, defense in Form 3. I'm still not very good at Form 4. It takes more energy than I have. Counterattacking with Form 5, and then drawing on all. If you're good, you can draw on all of that as the situation requires and be Form 6. Or if you're bad, you can kind of just blindly react and pick whatever your brain is like, oh man, you're going to need a really basic block here, or oh man, you got to retreat here, and that Form 6. So that's what I kind of was at the beginning, which was just kind of, kind of fighting from your back foot because you're just trying to think fast enough to get your muscles to get a sword in the way of someone else's sword. Now I'm still kind of like that, but maybe more defensive with Form 3, with just
Ted, you're Form 3 not because you refuse to attack people, but because lately your main strategy that I've seen has been oh my god. Your main strategy has been tiring out your opponent.
Yeah,
and so moving around them, and just like dodging and blocking and letting them go and letting them tire themselves out. And then, they're dripping sweat. They can't see straight. Their little headband that's not Ian's at all is, blinding them. And then you hit them on the head 3 times in a row and your match is over. It kicks ass. You just have to wait a little bit.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you need to think about the Form 3 aspect where there's only a 3-minute match. So how tired can you get someone in 3 minutes? And also, you have to be more in shape than your opponent, because right now, if I was to Form 3 someone, I would still probably pass out before they would, because I haven't done anything physical in months.
Ted?
Kale has something to say, but then I want to say something.
Let me just say, well, there's 2 experiences that I can illuminate right now. One was in Iowa against a very skilled fencer that there was a moment where they were facing you, and then they launched a salvo of attacks. You blocked, like, I think 5 hits in a row, and they just went, like, they looked around like, what, like, how do I get through this? And then also the last time we went against each other, I did the same thing where I did my Yodian thing, and I'm like, I don't know how to adapt to this right now. And you're like, oh, you just get hit. And I'm like, what? Oh, I got hit. Okay, that's how I adapt.
Kale said exactly what I was about to say. Like, that is my exact experience. The last time I fought with you, I was putting so much effort into making the distance between you and me. And you have this natural, frustrating, you have the ability to...
I don't want to get hurt.
You have the ability to read the exact distance a person is away. And I can deceive the distance and span the distance as much as possible. But if I swing and I'm an inch away, you know that inch, and you don't move away from it.
I never realized that. I appreciate that.
It's a natural instinct with you. Every time I try to really reach in, you know exactly how far I'm reaching, and you don't have to work half as hard as I'm working.
You see, I would say it's the force, but maybe it's the fact that I just use a little strap to keep my glasses just pressed to my face under the fencing mask, that I have a good vision of the field, whereas everyone else is visually impaired, perhaps.
It's the strap, Ted. The strap is your best defense.
Ted strapped. You heard it here.
All right, so moving towards the future. we've gone through a year. We've learned a lot. We still have a lot of growing to still do. Ted, talk us off. Like, what's something you want to see coming into the next year?
Oof. I had things for this too.
I just
All
wanted to
right.
repeat that Ian just said,
What we
"Talk
want to
us off."
see. What?
Just move on.
Oh, okay. So there were two things you had told us to talk about: what we want to see in the future and Galactic Saber future. I didn't know how those were different, but what I want to see in the future is more Yodians because they're the happiest, friendliest, bestest faction. I don't know if we went into the factions or not on this call while I was out.
We did.
We did? Tight. And I also want to reconvene eventually when the pandemic is done. And I'm not holding my breath because I don't know if that's going to be soon. So in terms of the future, I don't know how you plan around the pandemic, but eventually, I don't know, kind of the immediate future is going to be getting me back up to where I was before the pandemic because I haven't been practicing. So.
All right, and Kale, what do you want to see in the future?
Man, I would love to see a lot more backflips, cartwheels, roundoffs. Nah, I'm kidding. I mean, it would be fun to work those in, but right now I feel like my spin game isn't as strong as it could be. And the rule set we use definitely allows use of spins. And so I'm hoping to further that within myself. And as far as the league goes, I would love to have, well, I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but just between you guys and me, nobody else, I think a huge tournament with popcorn vendors and pretzels would be amazing. Yes, pretzels.
And I did think of something, though. Kale kind of reminded me. Can I pop back?
You had
Yes.
your head.
Okay. I will say, if you're a huge Star Wars fan and you're trying, it'll be easy to find yourself joining a Saber Combat League because you already have a huge love of Star Wars. But if you're kind of a fan or kind of into sword martial arts or whatever, or interested but have never tried it, it might seem kind of daunting when we're talking about all these things like different forms, because a lot of people weren't familiar with that in our group. And it might seem daunting when we're talking about buying gear and learning these rules and all this terminology that we've used. That makes it seem like we've learned a whole lot. I will say it's not that hard to get into because we take it pretty easy from the start. And after this pandemic will be a great time to get back into it because I know it'll probably be remembering basically everything we did. So a perfect refresher point for us would be a perfect introductory point for everyone. But it's not in the future. Basically, what I'm saying is if we get more people who aren't already in the group, I think that would be interesting and cool to do. And don't be scared off if you're like hearing us talk about spins and getting hurt and stuff. It's not fancy or crazy or dangerous, not super dangerous, but I don't know. I would say don't let us scare you if any of our jargon has given you that.
The learning curve is very shallow, I think would be the way to say it. Like, it's not a steep learning curve.
It is not. We were all in there, and we all started at kind of the same. We had,
All right.
I swear to God.
What?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Hear me now?
Ian, you are super quiet. Ted, you have crazy feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Pause for edit.
Okay. Pause for edit. Yeah, so I think that's something that we all kind of started at the exact same level. So we all had the same journey together where it wasn't like one person was jumping out ahead. It was everyone's kind of learning together. And we're still that way. Like there's still so much that we haven't learned, and so much we have to learn. And I think we're just keep growing and keep bringing in new people and helping them learn faster than what we learned because we had to learn by trial by error, and we still don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. I mean, it's just ever changing paradigms there. Scott, how about you? What is something you've had to learn, or I'm sorry, what do you want to see for the oncoming year?
Well, I also wanted to touch a little bit on the fact that I feel like most of our injuries came from us being such beginners. And now that we're all so much more established and more comfortable, every time we get somebody who's new, we know how to coach them through without injuries. I don't think we've had a real injury in quite a while. I mean, not counting Iowa.
Ian
But
did break his fingers again, but
yeah.
That wasn't us though.
But for me in the future, I know Kale, you were joking, but I feel like for the upper levels, I would really love to get into acrobatics. I feel like um, I feel like for me personally, that is the next level. That's the next step because in it's not only in sync with the theme of the kind of style that we have in our combat, the showy, the movement, the very Form 4 thing. We're kind of all lacking in Form 4 except you. And for me, I would really love to do that, not only because it'd be a ton of fun, but because the more you master your ability to move, the better you're going to be in combat.
I've got to give a quick shout out to Tim because I feel like Tim's also is being a Form 4 user as well. So just a quick there.
that kid is speedy.
Yeah,
He is speedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of technique in Form 4 that we're not learning and we don't have. Because Form 4 is not just about speed and improvisation. It's about very much the technique of moving your body in specific and unique ways. And I would love to level up on that. So that, for me, I would love that to be in the future.
Tagging in here, I think that, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't think we spend a whole lot of time on Form 4. Ted, can you hear me? Not on the. So yeah, I would love to spend more time on Form 4, and I think that Form 4's specialty is multiple opponents because it's all about controlling that space and moving from foe to foe. So I think like choreography and stuff like that, we have the opportunity to kind of tap into that more. Where you're spinning and jumping around all over, trying to defeat multiple different opponents and things like that, and controlling the battlefield essentially. So yeah, I would like to see. I concur. That would be a great idea. You got any more to add, Scott?
Nope.
Lucy, what would you like to see for next year?
I think I want to see more growth from everyone in the league. I definitely want to grow a lot more as myself as a fighter. I want to see all the other knights grow as fighters, but I also want to see, all of our acolytes who were there when we first started or didn't come as often, or the people who came, near the end of the summer. Also, I want to see all of our new people grow and continue with the combat sport once we get back from COVID. I really want to see them come back and improve as fighters themselves. And I want to see more new people come into the league. I want to see new people come in and learn all the awesomeness that we've already got to share. And that full progression, everybody moving up and more people coming in and just the league itself growing, because there is a lot of lightsaber out there and we've really just scratched the surface of it.
Absolutely. So we did have a tournament that was actually supposed to happen today. It was going to be our very first Galactic Saber tournament, and well, that did not end up happening. So that's something that we're going to be looking into whenever we right now. Let's do it. So we're definitely going to be, and the fallback date was going to be May 25th for that, but I don't think we're going to be coming out on anytime soon of the COVID. So that is kind of something that we're going to have to work towards getting out of, and hopefully that will be soon. But is there anything? Go for.
I was gonna make a joke. I said maybe we could just do a short series of two people meeting in the street, and then that'll be the tournament YouTube series right there.
Drive-by saber fights, right?
I mean, it could work.
I mean,
you got an NM mask and then the fencing mask. And then...
No contact.
You have like a gear up montage though. You got to show up completely gearless and then like strap it on once you lock eyes.
It could be fun.
So yeah, hopefully we're able to return to combat soon, because I definitely miss it. The thrill, the action, the constant learning, the constant I have no reason to get better if I'm not like out there getting my butt kicked by Ted. So it's so I'm definitely looking forward to getting back out there. Is there anything that any of you guys would like to add or say? 1 year anniversary. What you guys got?
Oh man, honestly, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's not on this call, because even though like you're not here right now, like I've got to say, not only have I like forged such good friendships with all of you guys, but also I've learned a lot. And I mean, I don't just mean like physical saber learning, like also interpersonal and historic lessons I've learned from a lot of you guys. I think one person particularly has like totally schooled me on history. It was great. But no, it's like I miss everybody that isn't on this call right now, and I cannot wait to face you guys either in the dojo, on the mat, training, fighting. It doesn't matter. I just want to see you guys again.
Agreed. Anything else? Anyone else?
What about thanking the people on this call? The Yodians decided to split. Decided to split the thanking duties. Just if you guys hadn't set up this league, I never would have met all of you or started lightsabering or dancing. So it's I would have just been a guy who sat on his couch, and I've been doing that lately. But
yeah, I think in the
kind of makes me realize it was cool. It's cool to do other stuff.
I think in the future we're gonna have a lot. There we go. In the future I think we're gonna have a lot of different options when it comes to lightsaber. Like there's so many different things popping up, from what Xander's doing with his dojo to Russell and with the Saber Legion. So I think we're just gonna have a lot of fun options and a lot more new people in sabering to go against and testing our abilities against and going out and trying new things. So it's an exciting time to be in saber, and I think it's only going to get more and more popular. Anything else you guys want to add before we sign off?
Here's to one more year.
Here's to one more year. Cheers. Woo! We should have had it.
Yeah.
We should have had. Well, he's got his Coke, so he's good to go.
Cheers.
Next time we'll get the technology right, and we will also have alcohol or something, right? Ted will enjoy that. I know Ted will enjoy that, right? Get some sticky going, maybe. All right. So that concludes the first year of Galactic Saber. I hope you guys all had a fantastic May 4th, and I hope that we're around all next year and we come back and we do this again, or we do it again before, because COVID, we might have to just do it again. So all right guys, thank you. Boop.